Subscribe or they will haunt you. What is the strangest mystery that is still unsolved? The Keddy Cabin murders, the Zodiac Killer, the Icedal Woman, the Lady of the Dunes, the Yuba County 5. Those are the ones I think of the most. The Tylenol murders from the 1980s, where like 5 or 6 people from Chicago consumed Tylenol laced with cyanide and died. They had one suspect, but he won't nail for it, but still went to prison because they tried to extort Johnson & Johnson, the company that makes Tylenol. Edit. Autocorrect sucks. My mom had bought Tylenol at the exact jewel that day. It was actually in Arlington Heights, a Chicago suburb. She hadn't opened it yet. There were cars going up and down the street with bullhorns warning people to throw it out. I was 2 at the time. Crazy. The suicide of Lavina Johnson, a black female US Army private who was found shot to death inside a burning tent with a broken nose, black eyes, broken teeth, raped and acid burns on her genitals in July 2005. US Army ruled her death a suicide. Brian Schaffer went into a bar in Ohio in camera, was never seen leaving, and has been missing 14 years. It's unreal. I recommend True Crime Garage. In 1977 we received a radio signal from outer space that lasted about 72 seconds. To this day, we still do not know where it originated from. The wow signal. No. What's crazy is that the signal lasted 72 seconds because we only had the recording capabilities for 72 seconds. It went on longer. The disappearance of the Beaumont children, 26th January 1966. Beaumont children disappearance. I've grown up hearing about this my whole life and I've been obsessed. It's horrible for those poor parents to never know why people keep pouring money into a hole in the ground on Oak Island. If you ask me, the show is a treasure. They rake in that sweet advertising money while not actually doing much more than recap past events and share about 15 minutes of new content. The Miyazawa family. Just listen to the Casa File podcast on this, and it has my mind blown. Someone entered the family home around 11:30 p.m., killed everyone, ate some ice cream, took a nap, pooped and didn't flush, changed clothes and left like 8 hours after the crime. 20 years on, and we don't know who or why. The Winchester Mystery House. I watched a documentary on this house when I was 10, and it has stuck with me ever since. It's about a woman named Sarah Winchester. Her husband and baby both died. Her husband owned a rifle company, and she went to a psychic. The psychic told her that she is being haunted by the ghosts of all the people who have died by the hands of those guns. And that is a reason for the tragedy that happened in her life. To appease the spirits, the psychic told her to build a great house for them, and she was not allowed to stop building, or tragedy will strike again. She didn't get help from anyone, but she did it, and kept building for the next 38 years. There are stairs that lead to nowhere, windows that don't look out, hallways that wrapped around. It has 161 rooms and it's huge. Was it really the ghosts? Was she insane? I have no idea, but it's the most interesting story I've ever heard. We still have no definitive proof of who this Socrates guy is. On one hand, he's mentioned constantly by philosophers from his time, often used as an example character, and several works are attributed to his name. On the other hand, we have countless legal records and censuses that confirm the existence of Aristotle and Plato, but none that link back to Socrates. He's either a very prolific philosopher or an in-joke that classical philosophers would reference when they didn't know who to attribute quotes to. The true author of My Immortal, a horrible fan fiction that has a cult following. The more you dive into it, the weirder and deeper the mystery gets. Interconnected webs, false flags, all kinda stuff. The Lady of the Dunes. No one knows who she is. It's a pretty crazy story. The Kankala Pass in Ladakh. This region lies in the disputed border of India and China, and is truly the most inaccessible places in the world. In 1962, the armies of both the countries were engaged in a severe conflict. After this, both China and India entered into an agreement according to which none will be allowed to patrol the region, but can keep an eye on it from a distance. After this, a popular belief floated that the Kankala Pass in Ladakh is a hideous base of UFOs. The area has forever remained a no man's land due to its territorial limits, and is a reason why the UFOs have chosen it as their operational base. Reportedly, many have seen these UFOs and both the Indian and Chinese governments are aware of these developments. In 2006, Google Maps too baffled the world with some images that looked like military facilities, but till date the whole issue remains mysterious and unexplainable. The identity of Jack the Ripper. The Bot's Void is a region of outer space that contains no galaxies or stars and we don't know why. Another one is Colonel Philip Shue's death. On April 16, 2003, 54-year-old Colonel Philip Shue left his Texas home and headed to work. 2 hours later, he was found dead in his car, an apparent victim of a car crash. The car was caved in on the driver's side and Philip suffered major head trauma as a result. He was killed instantly. This is where it gets weird. Philip had a tear in his t-shirt under his fatigues. There, they could see a 6-inch vertical gash in his chest. Above the entrance to the 6th gash were at least 5 scratch marks, which the autopsy report said were consistent with hesitant marks. Both his nipples had been removed with surgical precision. The 5th digit on his left hand had been amputated, and his left ear had been lacerated down to the bone. Duct tape was dangling from both of his wrists and the top of his boots. It was ruled a suicide. Malaysian Flight 370. That one time when the PM of Australia went to the beach. The identity of, and what happened to D. B. Cooper. A man on a plane called himself D. B. Cooper and claimed to have a bomb-in-use suitcase. He took the flight crew hostage, and when he got the money he asked for he had the flight crew start flying again. Eventually he jumped out of the plane with a couple of parachutes and the money. No one knows where he went, or if he even survived. Albert Johnson, the Mad Trapper of Rat River. A pretty cool mostly forgotten story about a man chased by the RCMP through the north. Who was Perseus? From 1943 to 1946, the Soviet Union had a high-level spy in the Manhattan Project, codenamed Perseus. This spy was a scientist at the White Sands missile testing site in NM, and the main research facilities in Los Alamos. Perseus saw pretty much the entire project start to finish, giving the Russians everything they needed to get to work on their own bomb. The fact that they were able to do so within 4 years of the end of WWII, when their nations were still devastated, is proof positive that Perseus helped a great deal. And to top it all off, Perseus was never caught or positively identified. Asher degree. Girl leaves her house in the middle of the night during a storm and disappeared. The only problem is that she was terrified of thunder and lightning and had no motive for leaving, because her home life was fine. Then her clothes and backpack were found a year later in an abandoned construction site. Ken McElroy's murder. This dad Checano terrorized an entire town until the town decided that they had enough, and then somebody shot him in broad daylight in front of a bunch of witnesses. To be fair, he probably deserved it. But what makes it interesting is that everyone claims to have had their eyes closed or be tying their shoe at the time or something, so oh boy, I wish I could help officer, but I didn't see anything. The USS Cyclops, a coal ship, disappeared with 306 men. The largest US Navy loss of life that didn't involve combat. An unknown group of people broke into an FBI building, and no one has found out who they are. But the best part of the story is, they did it by leaving a sticky note that said, "Do not lock the door tonight," and it worked. Edit. To everyone asking how they left the note, they just stuck the note to the front door. Probably should specified. Edit 2. I'm an approved member of r/what's the rule now. Edit 3. I know it's been solved. I heard about it 8 years ago and never learned that it was solved. The 1987 Arkansas murders of Don Henry and Kevin Ives, and every single possible witness surrounding them, like Keith McCaskill, who claimed to be on the tracks that night. He talked to the special prosecutor about what he saw, then realized the prosecutor was dirty. After coming forth as a witness, he began saying goodbye to his loved ones and planned his own funeral arrangements. Shortly after, he was stabbed 113 times. That guy who ran away from the airport hopped the fence and was never seen again. What happened to Brian Schaffer? This happened in my hometown. This med student went to a bar with friends and then fully disappeared off the face of the earth. Edit. The podcast True Crime Garage has an incredible series on this case. The hosts are both from Columbus and around Brian's age. They talk through the whole case in depth, and they also have a few guests that they talk with as well. Flight 19 of December 5th, 1945. 5 bomber craft on a routine training run became lost while heading back and eventually disappeared entirely. Audio has them saying that they thought they had ended up over the Florida Keys, but wind could not have allowed that. Even more interesting is the fact the rescue craft dispatched to locate them also disappeared. The whereabouts of the last Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller. The last verified sighting of him was in Berlin roughly 3 days before it fell. He had stated he knew full well what the Russians did to prisoners, and he had no intentions of being captured. As chief of the Gestapo, he more than likely had access to foreign documents as well as ways to replicate them. Both the CIA and the KGB spent time looking for him, but no trace has ever been found. The Hinterkaifeck murders. Super creepy, and the fact that there was evidence the murderers were in the house watching the family for a while before killing them just totally freaks me out. 3 lighthouse workers with impeccable mustaches traveled to a remote island on December 7th, 1900 for a lighthouse shift that should have lasted for 2 weeks. When a boat arrived to pick them up, they were gone. No trace of the bodies, and the lighthouse was strangely locked. Not only was the setting normal, meal ready to be served, but there was no fire in the fireplace, and the clock stopped. One of the men kept a log in a diary, and he said that the seas were rough one day, but when monitored, it was actually calm. No one knows what happened to them. The Overtown Bridge. It's a bridge in Scotland where dogs always unexplainably jump off. It's very strange and nobody knows why they do this. Dogs who survived reportedly walked back up and jumped off again. They even had to put up a warning sign to keep your dog on a leash and to watch them. A dog psychologist says maybe it's because of certain scents or animals down below, but most people have disagreed this theory. It's fucking weird.